And then the third instance he mentioned was when the disorganization and chaos of war had so uprooted people, had so destroyed everything that they'd built up for themselves by way of careers, professions, family, and everything like that, that they got the sensation that life in this world is totally meaningless, like Shakespeare's phrase, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And again, when they committed themselves to this and thoroughly accepted the idea that life was absolutely meaningless, there came this same extraordinary transformation of experience, this sense of joy, and in some strange and different way, a sense of the whole thing really having meaning. Now, I think that story is very interesting, because we in the Western world are so concerned that our lives should be meaningful, that they should make sense. And indeed, one of the frequent definitions of mental health that you hear is that mental health depends on one's having a purpose in life and finding that life is meaningful. And this is fairly easy to preserve, provided one's life is not disrupted by great catastrophes like war. It's fairly easy to preserve on a small scale. That is to say, we find it fairly easy to make our lives meaningful and purposeful in relation to our immediate community or in relation to our work, where we can do something that is a true vocation for us, or where in the community we can do things that are helpful to other people. But it's increasingly difficult to get this sense of the fundamental meaningfulness of things in a universe as it is now seen by contemporary science. In other words, when you enlarge the framework, it's more and more difficult to see any meaning in things. Because while we can see the significance of our lives over a few years, maybe 100 years, maybe 200, when we look at the thing in vast perspectives, when we see the human race as such a tiny little sort of bacillus living on an obscure piece of dust in a remote corner of the universe, when we see this enormous, almost cosmic nonsense of galaxies of radioactive material going around and around for colossal spans of time for no apparent purpose at all, in that perspective, it's particularly difficult for us to believe that life is fundamentally meaningful. And this is a real difficulty, because it's so hard to see something that has real and abiding meaning against a background or as part of a whole system which seems to be basically nonsensical. But the interesting thing is that when we use these words, meaningless or purposeless of the universe, they have a bad feeling for us. They are sort of cuss words. They're bad words to use about life. But it's very different with people in the Far East, with certain schools of thought in China and Japan, where the word purposeless, the word meaningless, does not have a negative connotation at all, but rather the contrary, something very joyous and positive. There's an old Chinese philosophical text that uses the expression, if purpose can be used to achieve purposelessness, then the thing has been grasped. The thing meaning the whole point of life.